2. True Socialism. The second part of the work which Marx and Engels had planned was to deal with German socialism and its various profits and to dissolve critically the whole bat-and-stale literature of German socialism. This attack was launched against men like Moses Hess, Karl Otto Luning, Merman Putman and others, who had created quite a respectable literature particularly in periodicals. There was the Gesellschaftsspiegel, which appeared monthly from the summer of 1845 to the summer of 1846, the Rheinische Jahrbucher and the Deutsches Bürgerbuch, which both appeared in 1845 and 1846. The Westfälisches Dampfbuch, a monthly which first appeared in 1845 and which lasted into the German Revolution, and finally one or two dailies such as the Triesche Zeitung. The extraordinary phenomenon which Karl once termed true socialism, an expression which Marx and Engels adopted ironically, had a short life. By 1848 practically nothing was left of it, and what remained disappeared immediately the first shot of the revolution was fired. It exercised no effect whatever on the intellectual development of Marx, who was its masterful critic from the beginning. But the harsh verdict he passes on it in the Communist Manifesto does not sum up his whole attitude towards it. And for a time he regarded it as a mixture which for all its absurdities might produce something worthwhile. And Engels was even more firmly of this opinion. Engels cooperated with Moses Hess in the publication of the Gesellschaftsspiegel, and even Marx made one contribution to it. Both Marx and Engels cooperated with Hess on numerous occasions during the Brussels period, and at one time it appeared as though Hess had completely adopted their ideas. Marx repeatedly tried to persuade Heine to contribute to the Rheinische Jahrbucher, whilst this publication and the Deutsches Bürgerbuch, both of which were issued by Putman, printed contributions from Engels. Both Marx and Engels contributed to the Westfälisches Dampfbuch, and this organ published the only part of the second section of the German ideology which has yet seen the light of day. It was a thorough and sharp criticism of a book which Karl had published on the social movement in France and Belgium. The fact that true socialism also developed out of the dissolution of Hegelian philosophy has led to the contention that in the beginning Marx and Engels were its adherents, and that for this reason they criticized it all the more sharply later, but this was not true. The difference between Marx and Engels and the supporters of true socialism was that although both sides had arrived at socialism from Hegel and Feuerbach, Marx and Engels had studied the character of socialism from the French Revolution and from English industry, whilst the supporters of true socialism had contented themselves with translating socialist formulas and slogans into corrupt Hegelian German. Marx and Engels did their best to raise true socialism above this level, and at the same time they were fair enough to recognize the whole tendency as a product of German history. It was flattering enough for Grun and his friends when their interpretation of socialism as an idle speculation on the realization of the human character was compared with the fact that Kant understood the expression of the will of the great French Revolution only as the law of the really human will. In their pedagogic efforts to improve true socialism, Marx and Engels spared neither patience nor severity. Cooperating with Hess on the Gesellschaftsspiegel, Engels let many things of the latter pass, though it must have gone against the grain. But in the Deutsches Bürgerbuch in 1846 he proceeded to make things hot for the true socialists. A little humanity, as they have begun to call the thing, a little realization of this humanity, or rather monstrosity, a little about property, at third or fourth hand, a minor proletarian jeremiad, the organization of labor, the formation of pitiful associations for uplifting the lower classes, plus an all-embracing ignorance of economics and the real nature of society, that is the whole business. And even then it loses the last drop of blood and the last vestige of energy and vitality thanks to theoretical impartiality and the absolute calm of thought. And with this tiresome stuff they want to revolutionize Germany, to set the proletariat in movement, to make the masses think and act. It was consideration for the proletariat and the masses which chiefly determined the attitude which Marx and Engels took up towards true socialism. They attacked Karl more violently than any other of its representatives, not only because he in fact offered them the most opportunity, but because, living in Paris, he was causing hopeless confusion amongst the workers there and had won a disastrous influence over Proudhon. And when they dissociated themselves so sharply from true socialism in the Communist Manifesto, even clearly indicating their former friend Moses Hess, they did so because thereby they were opening up the path for practical agitation on the part of the international proletariat. In the same way they were perhaps prepared to forgive true socialism the pedantic naivete with which it took its clumsy elementary exercises so seriously and solemnly. and trumpeted them out into the world in such a blatant fashion, but certainly not its alleged preparedness to support the government. The struggle of the bourgeoisie against pre-March absolutism and feudalism allegedly offered it the desired opportunity for attacking the liberal opposition in the rear. It served the German absolutist governments, with their camp following of parsons, schoolmasters, clod-hopping squires and bureaucrats, as a welcome scarecrow against the threatening advance of the bourgeoisie. It formed the sweetened supplement to the bitter scourge and the volleys of bullets with which the same governments belabored the insurrection of the German workers. This was greatly exaggerated in point of fact and quite unjust as far as the persons were concerned. In the Deutsch-Französische Jahrbuch, Marx himself had pointed out that the peculiarity of conditions in Germany made it impossible for the bourgeoisie to rise against the government without itself being attacked in the rear by the proletariat. He declared that the task of socialism was to support liberalism where it was still revolutionary and to oppose it where it was already reactionary. In detail, however, this task was not easy to perform. Even Marx and Engels had occasionally defended liberalism as still revolutionary when it was in fact already reactionary, whilst the true socialists sinned in the other direction and condemned liberalism whole and entire, a proceeding which was naturally agreeable to the German governments. The biggest sinner in this respect was Karl, but Moses Hess was not without fault, whilst Otto Luning, who edited the Westfälisches Dampfboot, was perhaps least guilty. In any case, their errors in this respect were committed from foolishness and lack of judgment and not from any desire to support the governments. In the revolution which passed sentence of death on all their illusions, they were all without exception on the left wing of the bourgeoisie. Not to mention Moses Hess, who fought in the ranks of the German Social Democracy. Not one single man amongst the true socialists went over to the enemy, and of all the shades of bourgeois socialism in their day and since, the true socialists have the best record in this respect. In addition, they harbored great respect for Marx and Engels and placed their publications willingly at the disposal of the two friends, even when true socialism came in for a drubbing thereby. It was obviously not secret malice, but a lack of understanding which prevented them slipping their old skin. Unfortunately, they subscribed wholeheartedly to the old Philistine idea that things must always go smoothly and without uproar. They felt that a young party could not afford to be particular, and that when discussions became inevitable they should be conducted with all decorum and in the best of taste. In particular, they felt that reputations like those of Bauer, Rouhet and Stirner must be treated with respect. Naturally, they caught a Tartar in Marx, and on one occasion he declared, "It is characteristic of these old women that they are always striving to gloss over and whitewash all real party disputes." However, the robust ideas of Marx on this subject met with understanding here and there even in the ranks of the true socialists. For instance, Joseph Weidemeyer, who was related to Luning by marriage and who collaborated in the editorship of the Westfälisches Dampfboot, became one of the most loyal supporters of Marx and Engels. Weidemeyer had been a lieutenant in the Prussian artillery but had abandoned a military career on account of his political convictions, and as sub-editor of the Triesche Zeitung, which was under the influence of Karl, he had come under the sway of the true socialists. In the spring of 1846 he went to Brussels. Whether he did so with the express intention of meeting Marx and Engels we do not know, but in any case, he quickly became friendly with them and stoutly opposed the chorus of protest which arose in the ranks of the true socialists at the ruthlessness of the criticism exercised by Marx and Engels, although even his brother-in-law Luning joined in the protest. Born in Westphalia, Weidemeyer had something of the quiet and even slow, but loyal and tenacious character attributed to his countrymen. He never became a writer of any outstanding talent, and when he returned to Germany he obtained work as a surveyor in connection with the building of the Cologne-Minden Railway, collaborating in the editorship of the Westfälisches Dampfboot only in his spare time. In his own practical way he now sought to be of assistance to Marx and Engels in a difficulty which was becoming more and more serious the longer it made itself felt, namely, the difficulty of obtaining a publisher. Owing to the spite of Rouhet, the Literarisches Kontor in Zurich was closed to them. Rouhet knew very well that whatever Marx might write would hardly be of poor quality, but he practically dragooned his partner Froebel into having no business relations with Marx, whilst Wigand in Leipzig, the chief publisher of the Young Hegelians, had already refused to publish a criticism of Bauer, Feuerbach, and Stirner. Weidemeyer therefore opened up a welcome prospect when he persuaded two rich communists in Westphalia, Julius Meyer and Kempel, to agree to put up the necessary money to found a publishing house which was to begin its activities with no less than 3 productions. the German Ideology, a library of socialist authors, and a quarterly magazine edited by Marx, Engels, and Hess. However, when it came to the point and the promised money fell due, the two capitalists went back on their word, although they had in the meantime confirmed it to Moses Hess. Business difficulties cropped up just at the right moment to paralyze their spirit of communist self-sacrifice. The result was a bitter disappointment for Marx and Engels, and it was aggravated by the fact that Weidemeyer was unsuccessful in his efforts to place the manuscript of the German Ideology elsewhere. It was now abandoned for good and all to the gnawing criticism of the mice.